One evening, a man called James was on the road from Oxford to London. There weren't many cars on the road because it was late. Suddenly, in the lights of his car, he saw a woman by the road. She was quite young and very pretty. It's dangerous to walk along the road when it's dark and late, he thought. He stopped, opened the window, and asked the young woman, "Where are you going?" "It's dangerous to stand here at night. Perhaps I can take you to London with me." The young woman didn't answer, but she opened the door of the car and got in. James asked her a lot of questions. "What's your name? Where do you live? Why are you on the road at night? Is your family in London? Where are your friends? Have you got any money? Are you hungry?" The young woman sat next to James, but she said nothing. Not one word. She only looked at the road. Soon James stopped asking questions, and they drove along without talking. Coming into London, there were more cars, and James had to drive more slowly. Suddenly, the young woman started to open the door, so James stopped the car quickly. They were in front of a house on a long street. The woman opened the door and got out of the car. Then she slowly walked up to the front door of the house. James watched her and thought angrily, "She didn't say thank you." 3 days later, he opened the back door of his car and found a coat. "This isn't my coat," he thought. Then he remembered the young woman. Perhaps it was her coat. He had to drive to London again that evening, so he thought, "Well, I'll take her coat back. I'll remember the street and the house." He drove there, parked in front of the house, and walked up to the door. An older woman answered. "Does the young woman live here?" he asked. "I'll think this is her coat. She left it in my car 3 days ago." The woman looked at the coat and began to cry. "That was my daughter's coat." "Here, please get it back to her then," James said. "I can't," the woman said. "She's dead." "Dead," said James. "Yes, she died 5 years ago." "5 years ago?" James asked quietly. "Yes, on the road between Oxford and London. In an accident," the woman said. Richard was living in a not-so-nice neighborhood with his parents. Their house was badly in need of repair, and none of the windows or doors ever locked properly. Richard complained to his mom about not being able to sleep because of the scratching noises in his room. His mom assumed that it was rats, or that some cat had managed to get in the house again and was in the room somewhere. After turning on the lights and not seeing any sort of animal, she told Richard to go back to bed. So Richard went back to bed and was awakened almost immediately again by the scratching. Insistent, ceaseless. He still couldn't tell where the sound was coming from, but this time he decided to ignore it, so he fell asleep again. Richard had no idea how long he'd been asleep when he suddenly sat up in bed, crying out, his hands flying to his back. He'd been bitten in the middle of his back while he slept, yet he'd been all lying on his back. Richard decided that things were just too weird and went to get his dad. His dad looked at his back. The spot that hurt certainly didn't look like a bite. It looked more like a punctured wound. So he flipped on the bedroom light and inspected Richard's bed. There was a hole in the fitted sheet, and some of the mattress stuffing was showing through the hole. At a loss to explain how it happened, Richard suggested that maybe a spring had come through. So Richard's dad flipped the twin bed over to see if the box springs were the culprit. What he found was a long knife stuck in the mattress, pointing upwards, towards where a person might lie. He also found mud and dirt under the bed, the exact length of a person. Checking immediately outside the window, he found fresh footprints in the mud leading to and then away from the window. Someone had slipped into Richard's room through the unlocked window and lain under his bed. The scratching sound he heard was the person using the knife to dig through the box springs and mattress to kill him. When I was a child, my family moved to a big old two-floor house with big empty rooms and creaking floorboards. Both my parents worked, so I was often alone when I came home from school. One early evening, when I came home, the house was still dark. I called out, "Mom," and heard her sing-song voice say "Yees" from upstairs. I called her again as I climbed the stairs to see which room she was in, and again got the same "Yees" reply. We were decorating at the time, and I didn't know my way around the maze of rooms, but she was in one of the far ones right down the hall. I felt uneasy, but I figured that was only natural, so I rushed forward to see my mom, knowing that her presence would calm my fears, as a mother's presence always does. Just as I reached for the handle of the door to let myself into the room, I heard the front door downstairs open, and my mother called, "Sweetie, are you home?" I jumped back, startled, and ran down the stairs to her. But as I glanced back from the top of the stairs, the door to the room slowly opened a crack. For a brief moment, I saw something strange in there, and I don't know what it was, but it was staring at me,